rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And, the fallout from the debate is still going on. It is still continuing tonight and today, and probably will for a little while. It's more than likely going to continue for quite some time. And the reason being, of course, is because the Democrats are in a panic. They've divided. They're imploding. They're just going all over the place. Not unexpected, considering the fact that the guy, their man, their dude that is supposed to be their incredibly intelligent, highly sophisticated, incredibly smart, and well-versed individual that they have in the White House totally fell flat on his freaking face. And they are now starting to realize it. In fact, I was on the phone with my good buddy, Steven Stiles. You've heard him before. We talked. He's the NHL guy. He was talking about the NHL and hockey on one episode. Oh, I don't know, probably about 6 months ago. Maybe even a year ago. It could be by now. Holy smokes. But anyway, he and I were talking right before the show. And he's kind of like, I don't understand it. Where did all these people, like everybody's all of a sudden going, Joe's not all with it. And I explained to him, I said, Steven, you got to understand, half the people that are out there right now are listening to just the mainstream media. They're not listening to people like myself, independent content creators who have been bringing you the truth for all this time about all of these things. And, it's kind of ironic, I guess, probably using the wrong definition of the phrase, but kind of ironic that all of a sudden they're now waking up to the fact that Joe Biden is not all with it and really, really, really shouldn't be our president. Really shouldn't be the president of the United States at all. I mean, think about this. The man goes from having the nuclear codes and like remembering them and understanding what the buttons are to potentially the next day just looking at the colored buttons and going, ooh, pretty, and pushing them. And that's kind of the not really Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but definitely the differences in the Joe Biden that happened on the debate stage. And then again, Joe Biden showing up at a rally in Atlanta, Georgia, where a lot of clips have come out and they're like, where was this? These are the lefties. Where was this, Joe Biden? Because he sounded strong. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't falling all over himself. He wasn't getting lost in his thoughts. Well, I got to tell you, leftist tears are great. They're tasty. They're salty, but they're tasty. And I like taking advantage of the fact that there is plenty to go around right now. But first, before I get into all of that tonight, we have Amy Jean Viner of Rumble, who is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So please, if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hats, if you're wearing them, put your hand over your heart and join in with Amy in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you for that, Amy. I do appreciate the submission. If you would like to hear yourself lead, and actually, if you would love to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please go ahead and, okay. Looks like we have a bit of a troll in here. Anyway, in the Rumble chat, I'm debating on whether or not there's a couple things that are not very appropriate. So please do me a favor and don't post inappropriate stuff. Anyway, that's your one and only warning. Next time it's gone. So the one and only, or the one and only Amy Jean Viner. But if you would like to submit your Pledge of Allegiance to be read on the show for you to lead us, please do so by recording yourself and then taking that audio file and shipping it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And I do appreciate that. Okay. So, all right, that's it. I don't know where that came. Yeah, it took a while for it to show up here. I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, we'll see. Yes, send your pledge into fans at AmericanPerspective.online for that. All right. So tonight's sponsor is going to be the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Take a look at this. It's 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather. Check that out. It is wrapped around pages that are tear and water resistant. Not only that, but look at this binding. It's actually stitched. No cheap glue for these guys. They stitch it all the way through the book and into the leather. It has a 100-year warranty against manufacturing defects and workmanship. You can return it to them and they will either fix it or replace it for free during that 100-year warranty. It has wonderful rounded corners, which I'm told by my rumblers that they are sexy. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and it is also guaranteed that the inside contents will get you your Civics badge in Scouts, because my youngest whiskey warrior has done so with this book as his primary source document. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get one for yourself, and purchase one for all of your liberal friends to watch them, or sorry, leftist friends to watch them break down in tears like they have been over the last couple of days due to the fact that we are turning back, hopefully, into a constitutional republic once again. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Get yours today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's books. I appreciate that, and I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate. Okay, so one thing I did forget, which I haven't seen Bonnie in the chat yet, kind of hoping that Bonnie will show up, but if she doesn't, no big deal. Tonight is Four Roses, single barrel, in the glass, and of course, tonight's glass is the We the People glass. Now, I'm going to point something out to you guys. I played a little trick on you. So my normal whiskey stones are not washed. And so I had to use, you remember those little green cactus frozen things that I've had in the past? I've sent pictures out on social media with them before. Well, that's what's in the glass. And of course, because I use a green screen, it's taking out the cactus, the little cactus in there. So that's why you can't see the whiskey in the glass, but it's there. I promise you. See, it's making me disappear. It's in there. I promise you. So, yeah, so Four Roses is what's in the glass. And here we go. Oh, that's some good stuff. I faked you guys out with that. I knew that was going to happen. It was cool. All right. Sometimes you just got to make your own humor. Okay. So let's get on to a fan favorite of On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from, as soon as I can get my fingers in it, the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of wonderful factoids about this fantastic country that we call home. And tonight, of course, is July 29th. And so tonight we are going to hear about Molly Pitcher. Tradition says that on this day in 1778, the day after the Battle of Monmouth in New Jersey, Mary Ludwig Hayes of Pennsylvania, known to her friends as Molly, stood before General Washington and received a warrant as a non-commissioned officer in return for bravery in the battle. Like many colonial wives, Molly had joined her husband John when he marched off to fight the British during the Revolutionary War. She spent her time in the camps, cooking, washing, and taking care of supplies. June 28th, 1778, found John Hayes manning a cannon at Monmouth on an afternoon when the temperature soared close to 100 degrees. Gasping soldiers began to drop from thirst and exhaustion. So Molly grabbed an artillery bucket and carried water from a cool spring to the troops. According to legend, the grateful men cheered Molly with her pitcher, and afterward she was known as Molly Pitcher. Molly also nursed the wounded that day. At one point, she hoisted an injured soldier to her shoulders and lugged him clear of the British charge. When her husband fell wounded beside his cannon, she seized the rammer staff and worked the rest of the day swabbing and loading the gun under heavy fire. An eyewitness to the battle described how, quote, a cannon shot from the enemy passed directly between her legs without doing any other damage other than carrying away all the lower part of her petticoat. The next day, it is said, George Washington thanked the barefooted, powder-stained Molly. In 1822, the Pennsylvania legislature voted to pay her $40 a year in recognition of her service. Since then, the name Molly Pitcher has come to stand for all the brave women who came to their country's aid during the war for independence. And that is today's On This Day in American History. All right. Fantastic. And pretty soon we're going to be having women in the draft, apparently, if they pass the law, at least if the Senate passes the law that they want passed. Anyway. Okay. Sorry for just a second. You're out. I can't handle people that do that. You just posted a whole bunch of crap in my chat. That's my chat, folks. I allow, and I am the arbiter of the chat. And so you're out of here, dude. I tried to warn you. Oh, I don't even know if you're a dude. Anyway, so yeah, you're gone. At least for now. You can maybe try later, but you're out of here. Just, you know, when you warn people, when you tell them, hey, look, you better watch yourself, be polite, be whatever. Yeah, not going to happen. It's out of here. Anyway. Oh, wow. That's terrible, Outlaw Dogs. That's terrible. Outlaw Dogs, if you're not watching on Rumble and on the audio portion, apparently there was an 8-year-old that drowned because there's no lifeguards at a beach in the Delaware River that she was working. So, that's sad. But hey, at least you're trying to prevent it from happening again. So applaud you for at least that. Okay. Friday, last night, I was extremely, happy, joyful. I was feeling ecstatic over some things that occurred. Obviously, the debate went quite well for former President Trump and soon to be future President Trump, as well as the fact that the Supreme Court issued a couple of really big decisions. I'm expecting that the Supreme Court will be issuing the immunity opinion and decision on Monday, the 1st, because they have that slated as an opinion day. So that's a good thing. But the big thing and the big talk especially on the socials, has been about both of those things. One in particular about the Chevron deference decision that came down, where it overturned 40 years of administrative state regulatory organizations, 3-letter agencies being able to basically just create law, which they're not supposed to do constitutionally. Constitutionally, the Congress is the only one that has that capability. But the other was, of course, Biden's just absolute atrocious and well-deserved, honestly, crash and burn at the debates. Now, first things first, they talked about it yesterday, and I mentioned, I talked about it yesterday, and I mentioned that halfway through the debate, 1 hour in, they were saying, oh, he has a cold. He has a cold. That's why. Well, now there's a new spin that's come out from the White House with regards to Joe Biden's abysmal performance at the debate. The White House now is saying that Biden was over-prepared. He was over-prepared. You know, to be honest with you, I don't understand this, but how you can be over-prepared for a debate, I have no idea. But this is the new White House spin with regards to Joe Biden's performance. So they are starting to point fingers within the White House officials. Here you can see this on hot air. A quote regarding the over-preparedness. So there was one person in Biden's orbit that told Axios, quote, he was overprepared and was relying on minutiae, meaning very small, the minor stuff, when all that mattered was vigor and energy. They prepared him for the wrong debate. Wait a minute. Did he have another debate? I don't think he had another debate. I know for a fact he didn't have another debate. But anyway, he was overprepared when what he needed was rest. It was confounding. Sorry, I just caught this over on Facebook. Becky is asking if it's true that a judge overthrew some of the J6ers who have been jailed. Yes, what happened, just really quickly, sorry, we're going to take a diversion here. But what happened really quickly is the fact that the law that was used came from the Sarbanes-Oxley Act and was essentially put into place after the whole Enron scandal. That's okay. But what it is they narrowed, what SCOTUS did was they narrowed the actual use of that law to mean that it only has to deal with destruction of documents, papers, things of that nature. They admonished the DOJ saying that it was well overbroad for it. And so the thing about it is that, yes, it technically overturned, but what in reality is going to do is it's sending the convictions back to the lower courts for the lower courts to apply that more narrower definition of what is obstruction and what it entails that the Supreme Court put out, such that now some of the cases will likely be commuted. Some of the sentences will likely be commuted under the fact and the convictions overturned because of the fact that of what they did. So there you go. I hope that answered the question for that. All right, let's get back to where I was at. So the other quote is a former White House official argued that the people there needed to be fired. The ones that prepared Joe, but lamented that it probably wouldn't happen because Biden rarely dismisses people. I don't understand that. If you do a crappy job, why wouldn't you be dismissed? What the hell? I mean, seriously, if you do a really shitty job, why would you not get fired? It just doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. He wants to be, nice old Joe. So anyway, what's interesting about that last quote is the fact that that was actually one of Trump's specific criticisms at the debate. You'll recall he was talking in specific about the Afghanistan and Iran policy and that no one gets held accountable for when they file. And that's exactly what happened there. So anyway, so that's the new spin now, is that Biden was over-prepared. Well, a lot of the left is ironically split now, as if they really couldn't be split before, but they are definitely split now because what they're doing is they are blaming anyone and everyone for Biden's performance, with the exception of Joe Biden himself. So, for an example, here, the Dems are blaming Tapper and Bash for not fact-checking Donald Trump, which anyone that watched the debate during the My Watch Party, Donald Trump didn't lie. I think he gave 3 over-exaggerations on some numbers, so I counted them as lies. But Joe Biden picked up 95 that I counted. And so anyway, they are continually going after Tapper and Bash. In fact, many people on the social medias were like, why didn't CNN fact-check Trump? And of course, I responded back to those folks whenever I saw a post like that. And I said, well, they would have been fact checking Biden because Biden did, 95 lies at least. So yeah. But anyway, they are trying to find ways to make it so that the blame doesn't go on Biden's cognitive considerations, meaning that Joe Biden is cognitively impaired. We all see it. Those of us in the know do see it. But they are still trying to come up with excuses for this guy. Yeah, 3 Chevy. I do not have a list, but I know that I recorded the whole thing. So if I really got the time, I could probably sit down and list all 95 of Biden's lies. If you'd like me to. I will see if I can arrange that. I don't know if I'll have time, but we'll see. But anyway, so yeah, so the spin doctors are in the House. The left is trying to cover up for Joe even more. Well, at least some of them. The New York Times editorial board has come out now and actually has gained criticism for this too. But this isn't just the news, and I've seen it on X too, so I've seen it's just a fantastic thing. But the New York Times editorial board immediately called for Joe Biden to drop out after that abysmal debate. And it's shaken so many Democratic insiders. And the Times editorial board actually calls it a reckless gamble to put Joe Biden up as the nominee for the Democrat Party for president. So, yeah, they're just imploding. So they released, the New York Times editorial board released a blistering editorial on Friday night that called for President Joe Biden to drop out of the presidential race after his disastrous debate performance on Thursday. It's shaken many insiders, leaving some leftist leaders reportedly scrambling to find a replacement candidate that has even a chance to beat former President Donald Trump in November. The White House has maintained that Joe Biden will remain in the race. The board wrote, quote, "The president appeared on Thursday night as the shadow of a great public servant. He struggled to explain what he would accomplish in his second term. He struggled to respond to Mr. Trump's provocations. More than once, he struggled to make it to the end of a sentence." They continued, "As it stands, the president is engaged in a reckless gamble. There are Democratic leaders better equipped to present clear, compelling, and energetic alternatives to a second Trump presidency." The board acknowledges the president's long devotion to the country and praised his leadership over the past few years, but the board claimed that trying to pass off Biden's performance in a debate as a bad cold or a bad night was no longer sufficient, and a new leader and candidate must take his place. They said it's too big a bet to simply hope Americans will overlook or discount Mr. Biden's age and infirmity that they see with their own eyes. Now, even Barack Obama has basically said, nope, you just had a bad night. You just had a bad night. And I've had them. Believe me, I have had them. He just had a bad night. That's it. We're going to be behind Joe all the way because he had a bad night. We're not turning away from him. No. Now, that's not a direct quote, of course. And I'm sorry for the bad impression of Obama. But there you go. Obama is even said, we're not doing it. In fact, one of the people that the Democrats have been pointing to as a possible replacement for him is Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom has distanced himself now. He has come out in public and has stated that he is not, unequivocally, not going to replace Joe Biden. Newsom insisted that he will not be the 2024 Democratic presidential candidate. He was telling a bunch of news reporters who immediately all came in, are you going to replace Joe Biden as the president? And he basically said, and I quote, "Our nominee is Joe Biden. I'm looking forward to voting for him in November." So Gavin Newsom has already said, I am not taking his place. And let's be honest, as I explained last night on the program, while not impossible, there are a bunch of hurdles that would have to occur in order that the Democrats would have to overcome had they decided to go ahead and get rid of Joe. The first one being their disastrous vice president, Kamala Harris, because of the fact that she is the perfect DEI candidate. She is a woman. She is black. Well, that's what they say anyway. She actually isn't. She's Jamaican. But the point is that, and Indian too, by the way, East Indian, not American Indian. But the point of all of this is that she is not likable. People don't like her at all. She is probably one of the most stupid vice presidents that we've ever had. If you ever listen to her speak in her circular method of public speaking, you can hardly make a word edgewise. In fact, she rivals Joe as to how to make things confusing as quickly as possible. But there again, they could potentially bring in somebody who might be able to at least unite the party and possibly don't do anything too drastic in order to appease Kamala Harris. But I guarantee you, she's probably sitting there in her office going, why doesn't anybody pick me? And then, of course, cackling like crazy. But anyway, she's not the candidate, because not even people inside the Democrat Party actually like her. So she's not the candidate. Gavin Newsom is saying, I'm not the candidate. So that pretty much leaves at this point, as far as like major pieces, is Hillary Clinton as a potential running, not even a running mate. But then again, you also have the problem of Joe on his own. See, as long as he thinks that he can do the job, there really isn't going to be much that they can do to kick him out. Because as I said last night, he has to volunteer to step down and hand his delegates that he's already won to be able to hand over to whoever comes in. And he is not going to do that. And what's even more likely is that Jill is not going to want him to do it. So honestly, and there's also a whole money thing. There's FEC rules that have to be followed. There's every single state would have to change all of their ballots. I mean, there is a whole slew of possible opposition to this entire situation. And so I honestly don't think that they are going to get rid of Joe. I think they're going to end up just taking the loss and call it good. But again, not 100% certain that can happen. We can't wait. I mean, we can't discount it completely, but the chances are pretty much. And let's be honest, Donald Trump has a much better chance against Joe Biden anyway than pretty much everybody other than Kamala Harris. And so, yeah, the Democrats have painted themselves into a serious corner backing this guy. And so that just is much better for us as far as conservatives, and for America too, by the way. But I warn you, it will also make the Democrats much more desperate. Now they are going to really, really, really up the ante in trying to go after Trump and get him taken out off the ballot. And so, yes, I really hope that the Secret Service that's protecting Trump is 100% on their game all the time. Because, yeah, that's going to be scary to think about it. But it doesn't change people's public opinion, no matter how many times you talk about who possibly could come in and how they could do it and whether or not they could do it. It still doesn't change public opinion. In fact, the New York Post ran a post-debate poll. And out of the rough almost 4,000 people that they were able to poll off of this, a staggering 82% don't think that Joe Biden should still run for president, which, yeah, that's, I would tend to agree with that. And what's sad about this is that, again, these people are just now waking up to, oh my gosh, well, wow, that was like absolutely horrible. What the heck happened? Because they've been watching the mainstream media, and the mainstream media has been covering all of this stuff. They've been covering it up. They haven't been talking about it. They've been covering it up. They've not talked about it at all. And so there's a lot of people who are outside of the political pundit sphere that are looking at this and going, what the hell happened? You guys have been telling us that he is perfectly fine. Yeah. And nope, he is not. And we know he's not. All right. So, of course, the great news, which this is coming from Woke Spy. The great news is, of course, that Joe Biden is not bowing out. In fact, like I said last night, Joe Biden has already said, I'm ready for him in September. Scranton Joe, fighting Scranton Joe, and I'm ready for him in September. He actually probably thinks that he won that debate. We all know that he didn't, but he probably thinks he did. But anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this. Well, here's a question for you. I don't know how this would work, to be honest with you. And I think this might actually be a way out of this for the Democrats. And I'm certainly hoping that the Republicans are smart enough not to do this. I thought Trip Roy was a pretty savvy guy. And yes, I do understand that we are in a very dangerous situation over the course of the next, 7 or 8 months, I think, by the time January rolls around and we get the actual switch. Okay. But Chip Roy, who I would have thought would have not done this, but he has decidedly put forth, and this is, I got to tell you, whether or not I actually think this would be a good thing, it's not a good thing in terms of the long haul. But here we have Chip Roy, according to the Daily Caller, he unveils a 25th Amendment resolution in the House to yank Biden from office after the debate implosion. And I'm just, I know it's bad. I know that his leadership, we all know he's not in charge of his mental faculties. We also know that he has not been in charge of the Oval Office for quite some time. But at the same time, though, I'm not entirely sure this is the best way to go. Because think about this. If we enacted, or if the 25th Amendment gets enacted, now for those of you that may not understand American politics, what the 25th Amendment actually is, and you can read it in the Constitution, it is a method to remove a sitting president when they become compromised in any way and incapacitated to the point where they cannot continue as president. They cannot continue to perform the duties in this. And so one of the things that the 25th Amendment did is it essentially makes it so that the vice president and the top cabinet members can submit essentially what would be a vote of no confidence to Congress and actually have Joe Biden removed from the office of the presidency, and the vice president in that case would take over. Now, for those of you who have ever watched the Harrison Ford movie Air Force One, where Glenn Close was very close to signing the document that would have enacted the 25th Amendment because of the fact that the Harrison Ford character was under a large state of duress, being captured on Air Force One by, I think it was Chechen rebels or Russian separatists or something. But anyway, the point being is that they essentially had the document already set and ready to sign, and she refused to sign it because of the fact that she still had the belief, or the character still had the belief, that the president was going to be able to come back. Now, again, keep in mind, I think part of the idea here under the 25th Amendment was also dealing with the fact that Woodrow Wilson was incapacitated for a very long period of time, and his wife actually is reported to have run the government during the time that Woodrow Wilson, I think he suffered some sort of a health malady. I think it was a stroke or something along those lines. And so he was incapacitated for something like 6 to 8 months during his presidency. Well, the thing about it is here, folks, is that if the 25th were put into place, we would end up with Kamala for that 6 months or whatever is left in the presidency. And believe me, if you think Joe Biden is bad and Joe Biden is radical and Joe Biden, well, I mean, whoever's running the government, obviously none of that doesn't matter, because even if Kamala Harris got put into place, I'm fairly certain that Joe Biden is not the one who has got the reins on this right now. So, yeah, honestly, I'm not too pleased about this idea. And if the Republicans go through with this, that would be a bit of a problem, I think, in the long run. I think the better off position is to just wait it out until such time as we can win in November. But he goes ahead and he puts it forward. And so now it's a resolution. And so the House is going to have to vote on it, or at least put it up to a vote, which, let me see if they do it now. He introduced this Friday. Yeah, so he's introducing Section 4 of the 25th, which empowers the vice president and a majority of cabinet officials to effectively pronounce the president unfit to continue and replace him. And so the resolution, of course, calls on Harris to immediately use her powers in order to do it. Now, he announced his intention to introduce the resolution before releasing the full text of it. And he also wrote a post on X about it. The White House, of course, hasn't responded. As far as I know, it hasn't responded yet. But yeah, so we'll have to see about all of this. I'm not like, I don't know. I don't want to do this. However, keep in mind, of course, that this is not, I mean, this really isn't going to do anything. Even if the resolution passed, okay, the vice president and the cabinet members are the ones that have to do it, according to the 25th Amendment, not the House of Representatives, not the Senate. So honestly, I mean, this is basically all you're doing here is just putting it down on paper that you're unhappy, which we pretty much already knew that anyway. Well, there is one person, honestly, one person who I say deserves a heartfelt apology. I think this man, this one man, deserves to have a public apology, which he'll never get, but a public apology put out by the White House and also the Department of Justice. Well, who am I talking about? Considering Joe Biden's performance on Thursday night, I think Special Counsel Robert Hur has been vindicated. And I think that he deserves an apology after Biden's debate performance. And I also think that the Department of Justice needs to quit trying to hide the audio tapes. That the Department of Justice needs to comply with the Congress's request, or the House of Representatives' request, of the subpoena to get those audio tapes. Because now we've had stumbling, mumbling, bumbling Joe Biden on national television, which, by the way, 51.4 or 51.5, 51.6, something like that. Over 51 million people watched it on 17 different outlets that do it. So here's the thing. I think Robert Hur needs a heartfelt apology. I agree with the New York Post on this. And I believe that they need to release those tapes, because now we really need to see what was Biden like 5 or 6 months ago when these interviews were going on. And I think this also makes it to where Joe Biden's desire to keep those tapes, or the DOJ's desire to keep those tapes under wraps, is now superseded by public interest in the reality of what this man, who was described as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, actually is like, even behind closed doors, which is what this audio tape, the audio, could demonstrate to America. Now, honestly, that would potentially support Chip Roy's decision on the 25th Amendment. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think that the Department of Justice has any further leg to stand on when it comes to the audio recordings. We already know the important quality of, or the important parts of the recordings, at least that's what they've told us. Because they've said that the important meat and potatoes is there in the transcript. So if there's nothing further other than listening to the methodology, the way that Biden delivers the answers, how he deals with the questions, how he physically sounds, his tonal inflection, so on and so forth, then I think that it's time to release those tapes. Now, Support Our Rights over on Rumble says, in my humble opinion, it doesn't really do much at this point, does it? Well, you're right, it really doesn't, other than it gives us a further look into potentially what could be. I could change my mind over those tapes and Chip Roy's 25th Amendment if we really, really and truly believe that we could be in a situation where national security is completely at risk with this guy. Not to mention the fact that, honestly, I think it would also give exoneration to Donald Trump and his classified documents case, too, because, again, Joe Biden should have been charged because he actually took classified documents when he was a senator and a vice president, when he did not have constitutional authority to remove them from secured facilities, secured locations. So I think it is important, although it may not be, as important as what it was before the debate. But it definitely, I think, is something that does need to occur anyway, because we need to expose all of this stuff that Joe Biden has been doing. The House has been doing wonderful things with the trailing and the tracking of the Biden crime family. And now it's time to actually expose Joe Biden for the true corrupt and incompetent oatmeal brains that the right has been talking about for this entire time. All right, so I'm going to shift gears slightly here. We're going to move away from debates and Joe Biden and so on and so forth. But before I do, I'm going to tell you, folks, time is running out. If you want to get fantastic shirts, patriotic shirts like the ones that I wear right here on this program, and you want to get it before the Independence Day holiday, you're running out of time. You've got tonight and tomorrow, I think, at the most, in order to be able to get it by the Independence Day holiday on July 4th. You need to hurry up, and you need to get to theflagshirt.com. That's right. Theflagshirt.com, all lowercase, all one word, will get you to the website where you can pick up these fantastic patriotic shirts for men, women, kids. They have a bunch of accessories that are all patriotized too. They are red, white, and blue. They are flag colored, flag themed. It is fantastic. You can get sunglasses, hats, socks. I think there's even a tie or two there. Go to theflagshirt.com. Now, I exclusively wear the cotton polos, the men's cotton polos. And believe me, when you look at their size charts, they are true to size for the men's. The women's have great styles, great colors, great, wonderful, and fantastic patriotic gear that you should go and take a look at. Go to theflagshirt.com and order in the next 24 to 36 hours, and they'll get it to you by Independence Day. That's their guarantee. Additionally, if you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you will get an additional coupon code that you can enter in at checkout, and obtain an additional $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, and you can get your $5 off coupon code that you enter at checkout in order to get $5 off your order. I'm sorry, Coco Dominky put up that she's like, I'm pretty sure he said sharts instead of shirts. Maybe so. But make sure that you go to theflagshirt.com to get your order in and get yourself patriotized before the Independence Day holiday, which occurs on July 4th. Theflagshirt.com, get yourself patriotized. All right. So we've all been wondering, I know I have, but we've all been wondering how and why a person can enter into public service, get a starting salary of $174,000 per year, and all of a sudden have a net worth and net wealth into the millions. Like, for an example, our favorite bartender and, to me, donkey from Shrek looking individual called AOC. She went ahead and jumped in her value. Her net worth jumped within the first couple of years that she was in Congress. We've all been wondering, how the hell can this happen? And even Nancy Pelosi, long time, Joe Biden, long time public servant. How can these public servants all of a sudden become millionaires? And in the case of Bernie Sanders, billionaires, and have like 4 and 5 houses. And we all wonder how that's happening. Well, there's been some suggestion that Nancy Pelosi has made some really, really incredibly smart trades, which I find honestly to be fantastical. How somebody can be that smart without having insider information, I think, is just amazing. But she did something, I think, with NVIDIA here recently. I saw the article and I didn't bother to put it on the show. But there was a thing where she, all of a sudden, she like made millions off of this trade with NVIDIA, which is for those of you that may not know, it's a graphics card. So everything that your computer runs video-wise comes from the graphics card, and it's a graphics card manufacturer. Well, this article hit in the Washington Free Beacon, and it certainly makes you wonder. It makes me wonder. Actually, it doesn't make me wonder, because I knew stuff like this was going on, but now it's starting to come out. And what's even better is it's all on our buddy, Chucky Schumer. So here in the Washington Free Beacon, Chuck Schumer's dear friend invested in solar as Schumer secretly negotiated the the Inflation Reduction Act, which was not named correctly because it was the climate bill. It was the new Green New Deal, the new Green New Deal, or the new Green New Deal, or whatever they wanted to call it. They called it the Inflation Reduction Act. It actually didn't do what it was said to do. It didn't reduce inflation. But apparently a guy named James Simons donated to Schumer's super PAC days before the senator unveiled the Inflation Reduction Act. So here in the piece, around the time that Democratic leaders were secretly negotiating the details of President Joe Biden's landmark Inflation Reduction Act. By the way, do you remember Solyndra from the Obama era? Do you remember that? Anyway, sorry, I digress. Democrat Party megadonor James Simons' hedge fund substantially upped its financial stake in several solar energy companies, which reaped windfalls from the bills. According to federal elections filings, 8 days before the Senate Majority Leaders Chuck Schumer and Senator Joe Manchin publicly unveiled the Inflation Reduction Act on July 27th, back in 2022, Simons wired $2.5 million to Schumer's Senate Majority PAC. Then in August, 1 week after President Biden signed the bill into law, Simons sent another $2.5 million check to the same PAC. Simons' trading activity, coupled with his aptly timed donations to the Senate Majority PAC, raises questions about whether or not he had advanced knowledge of the Inflation Reduction Act negotiations, which were supposedly kept private until Schumer and Manchin's announcement in late July. At the very least, it suggests that Simons sought to take advantage of the solar industry handouts earmarked in the IRA by increasing his exposure to various solar companies, some of which are based in China, including one tied to forced labor. The fund was far less bullish on those companies prior to the IRA negotiations. Now, you know what's really sad about all of this is that the Democrats tried and failed to sue Donald Trump and Trump hotels because of the fact that Donald Trump was making money off of those hotels internationally from foreign entities. They tried to get him with the emollients clause in the Constitution where he couldn't make money off of this. I mean, this is freaking ridiculous. You have members in Congress such as Chuck Schumer, such as Nancy Pelosi, such as AOC, who are public servants. Oh, can't forget Senator Joe Biden, that are making all kinds of money, that have increased their net worth by being public servants. Folks, the problem that we have here is the fact that we have essentially a cabal of individuals who are going into public service and making all kinds of freaking money, like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a freaking communist, socialist, whatever. And he's a billionaire? This is no different than the Russian oligarchs over in what used to be the Soviet Union. I'm telling you, people, public servitude, you go in and you walk out with less. The only public servant who has done that in modern history is Donald John Trump. He walked in with more money and left with less. And the American people are sitting here and looking at these people and thinking that the Democrats in particular are like the saviors of this country. They're not. Shoot, Bob Menendez is like walking around with gold bars in his freaking suit coats at his house. I cannot understand why we have allowed these people who are in our Congress making the laws for this country, which, again, by the way, I don't see anywhere in Article 1, Section 8, where it talks, in the Constitution, by the way, where it talks about how this federal government is supposed to hand out subsidies and hand out all these wonderful things for electric charging stations across the United States 2 years ago, where they were only built 7 of the damn things. I'd like to understand which listed item in the 19 separate items that are listed in Article 1, Section 8, what one that falls under. And keep in mind, just the other day, I was talking and telling you on this program that 6 of the 18 that were listed, I think I miscounted, but 6 of the 18 were directly for the defense of this country, which is Congress's primary purpose and the federal government's primary purpose. What I don't understand is how people like Chucky Schumer here can be in office for all of this time and be able to do things. This is an obvious potential insider trading in situation that needs to be further investigated and fully vetted. This is ridiculous. And why these guys are being able to go ahead and just do this without a problem, and the DOJ turns its head against all of this, or the SEC in this case turns its head against all of this. Well, guess what? The SEC now can't do internal audits anymore because the the SCOTUS kicked that back on Thursday. Now it has to go through the courts. So maybe, just maybe, we might, with a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and a Republican as president, we might get an opportunity to be able to change these. I just don't understand where these people can get off by putting these laws into place and be able to get away with this crap. It's as though these people are above the law. And it all seems to, I mean, not saying that the Republicans aren't doing it, but at least for right now, it seems like it's mostly Democrats that are picking this up. And even if the Republicans are doing it, it's probably rhinos like Paul Ryan or, some of those other folks, Mitt Romney, for an example. I mean, if Ukraine was any kind of a wake-up call for us in terms of the American people, we the people, we should have woken up to that. How many of these people, Nancy Pelosi, the aforementioned Mitt Romney, I'm trying to think, John Kerry's kid was on some Ukrainian board or something like this. This is nuts. We need to rein back in government. We need to rein back in government to get it back within its constitutional boundaries. In my full opinion, and I'll keep saying it and keep repeating it, the 10th Amendment is the most unused amendment in the entire list of amendments in the U.S. Constitution, and yet it could be the most powerful when it comes to hemming in the federal government. And it needs to happen soon. Needs to happen. If the Republicans get this stuff back, man, I'm telling you, they have got to start cleaning house. And I'm not talking about just the 3-letter agencies over on the executive branch. I'm talking about Congress and everything else that is going on here. Support Our Rights over on Rumble says, along with insider trading, they get millions from backdoor deals from corporations and black type ops. Yeah, I would agree. I'm sure there's a whole swamp, believe me, that We haven't even touched the surface yet. We haven't even touched or scratched the surface. You got to understand, this is decades of corruption that has been going on in our government because of the fact that the American people have spent their entire time holding their noses and accepting the smell from DC because they think that the federal government has the right to do all of this stuff, because of the fact that the federal government has taken over the American people's education and are not talking about this document as it stands, as it means, as it's interpreted. And for those on audio, I'm talking about the Constitution of the United States. You need to get one. You need to read it. You need to understand it. You need to dig into the Federalist Papers. And yes, I'm pointing off to my right because I have the Federalist Papers in a book. You need to dig into that. You need to listen to shows like this one and Bongino and Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, a bunch of other outlets. Stop being spoon-fed, damn it. Getting tired of this. Okay, I need to take a bit of a breather. We had some other good news happen this week. This actually in the private sector. You know that wonderful thing known as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Some people call it DIE. Well, a business that I actually have frequented, by the way, but a business has finally decided to give DEI its proper due. And the reason being is because it actually started losing business. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why it started losing business. Well, check this out. This from the Epic Times. Tractor Supply backs away from DEI initiatives after a boycott. Folks, we have power. It's called our pocketbooks. We have the power to be able to make and affect change by hitting these companies in the bottom line. Hit them in the pocketbook, hit them in the money. This is the exact same thing that I've been talking about with sports teams and high price tickets. I've been talking about this for years. I've had several people who are like, man, I love, whatever the sports team is. I love going to the games, but man, those ticket prices are just so damn high. Well, you know how you deal with it? You don't go to the freaking games. You don't buy the goddamn tickets. You hit the sports team in the pocketbook and you make it to where they start to realize that, oh shit, we went too far. And then they lower the prices. That's exactly what happens with these boycotts. And Tractor Supply is the latest in the corporate world that realizes that not everybody is on with this DEI crap. So the company said in a statement that they are backing away from diversity, equity, and inclusion. They announced it 2 days ago, June 27th, after experiencing a boycott over the measures. The Tennessee-based company, which sells home and agricultural products, said it is eliminating DEI roles and ending its DEI ambitions. Tractor Supply is also withdrawing carbon emissions goals, ending its sponsorship of festivals promoting gay and transgender communities, and stopping its submission of data to the Human Rights Campaign, which advocates for those communities. The campaign did not respond to a request for comment from the Epic Times. The statement Tractor Supply put out said, "We work hard to live up to our mission and values every day and represent the values of the communities and customers we serve. We have heard from customers and that we have disappointed them. We have taken this feedback to heart." Tractor Supply had been making hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations to DE&I causes, according to annual reports. Okay, So here's the thing. Look, there is nothing wrong with wanting to help people. And there is nothing wrong with attempting to get more people involved. And there is nothing wrong with necessarily being gay or even being trans. There's nothing wrong with any of that in the public sphere. Now, I have personal religious exemptions to that or exceptions to that, but that's me and that's my personal beliefs. But one of the greatest things about America is the fact that everybody is supposed to be included. So why in the hell do we even need this idea that we need to have diversity, equity, inclusion? We're already doing it as freaking Americans. We're the goddamn melting pot of the entire freaking world. There is so many different diverse cultures and people here in this country. There is absolutely no reason why we need to elevate one over another. In fact, in the corporate world, you should just forget about a person's skin color or a person's religion or a person's culture. You need to get rid of all of them. Just take people on their merits. That's the beauty of America. That's the beauty as to why we in this country came here for a better life, because you don't have to worry about being, for an example, a Sunni or a Shiite in the Islam world. There is absolutely no reason why you should take into account anyone's skin color in the matter of hiring. Are they a good worker? Or can they do the job? Are they physically able? Are they mentally able? Other than that, there's no difference. Black, white, red, Asian doesn't freaking matter. I've known smart people of all races, colors, and creeds. I've known very capable people of all races, colors, and creeds. If anything else, what we should do is we should do just like we do with the American, or just like we do, or at least we did, in the military, which was, hey, guess what? You're in the Army, you're all freaking green. You're not black, you're not Asian, you're not Mexican, you're not white, you're not Native American, you're freaking green, people. That's what you are. We need to look at this. We need to stop this divisive nature and divisiveness that the left seems to want to categorize people in specific. Look, you're either freaking American or you're not. You're not African American. You're not Asian American. You're American. I saw this post on X. This is kind of related to this, but I saw this post on X, and this lady, she happened to be black. And she goes and she's like, she's a airline stewardess, whatever. Airline flight attendant, I think is what they call. Okay. But here's the thing. All right. She sat down and she's like, oh my gosh, I got to my plane today and I found out that we're an all African American crew. Now, me being the person that I am, sometimes I like to stir the pot. So I went ahead and put on X and I said, given the fact that it is highly unlikely that any one of you, and there's like 6 individuals in this picture, okay, that any one of you was not born in Africa and naturalized here in the United States, meaning that you immigrated legally and changed your status over to being an American citizen, okay, that the chances are that everybody in that photo was born here in America. You're not African American, folks. You're American. You have no tie to Africa. If you were born here, you're an American. That's it. That's it. I have traveled to many different countries throughout this world, and I can tell you that when you go to France, when you go to Italy, when you go to England, when you go to Korea, when you go to China, sorry, Trump-wise, China, you go there and you ask an Italian, you ask a Frenchman, you ask an Englishman, or even an English woman, or a French woman, or an Italian woman. You ask any of them, okay? You ask any of them. And you say, are you an African Frenchman? Are you an African Italian? Are you an African Englishman? Are you an Asian Italian? Are you an Asian Frenchman? They will look at you like you are the most stupidest fucking person on this planet. I went on a trip to England for a work trip. We were up in northern England, okay? And we went to a restaurant because obviously we're there just hanging out and, you know, doing our work, and we had to go eat. So we went to a restaurant. And I walked in and we were served by a nice, young, black English lady. She was fantastic. I'm going to tell you, she was a fantastic server. And we were sitting there and I wanted to ask the question, but I didn't. However, what I did ask though, is we got onto the subject of where we were from. Now you need to understand, my coworker at the time is of Guatemalan descent. So he looks Guatemalan. All right. But he's an American. He was born here in America. That's all he's ever known. And he doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't even speak Spanish. But the point is that the lady came by and she was like, oh, you know, we started talking about differences in culture and mannerisms and things like that. And I asked her, I said, well, where do you think we come from? And she goes, oh, you're Canadian, aren't you? It's like, no, I'm not Canadian. I'm not Canadian. I'm actually American. She was like, oh. But that's the thing. If you ask any other country on this planet, if they are of a hyphenated nature, doesn't even matter what the hyphen is, they are going to tell you no. In fact, if you were to walk up to a black Frenchman and ask them if they are an African Frenchman, they're going to look at you and go, no, hell no, I'm a Frenchman. They are very proud of their heritage over there. Same thing with an Italian. You ask an Italian, are you Italian? Yeah, I'm Italian. And they could have skin the color of night, and it won't matter. This hyphenation bullshit that we have going on here in this country needs to quit. You're either American or you're not. That's it. That's all there is to it. You're either American or you're not. And I am tired of putting the boxes of separation in this world. The left has done this so well. So well. And I'm getting tired of it. And we need to stop. All right. Let's see. Time check. Okay, I've got a couple things that I want to talk about. Scooting toward the international scene, okay. One of the things that has been on everybody's mind with the conflict over in Israel and Hamas is the fact that there's actually two factions of terrorist organizations that surround Israel. In Gaza, you have Hamas, which Israel is now taking care of them. Okay. And because of the fact that they're being taken care of, the other terrorist threat over there, which is in the West Bank and on the West Side, is essentially starting to kind of beat their drums. And I've mentioned on this program multiple times, and I still believe this to this day, that World War III is going to be fought in 3 separate theaters. You're going to have Eastern Europe, you're going to have the Middle East, and you're going to have the Eastern Pacific, which technically, I guess that's the Western Pacific. But anyway, over in the Eastern East Asia area theater. Okay. And so here's the thing. There is reports coming out in different magazines, different articles, different places that I'm starting to see that Hezbollah is actually starting to grow in strength. And this is another one of those articles. The National Security Journal puts out, Hezbollah's missiles and growing military might are a true threat. Now, they've got a graphic here that kind of shows the different missiles and rockets that Hezbollah has. And if you haven't already, you should run on over to rumble.com and check out the video, and you can pick it up toward the end of the show. But you can see this graphic, and you can also click the link in the description of the video to go to the actual article itself. But there was a special envoy, a U.S. special envoy named Amos Hochstein, who was in Beirut to again meet with Lebanese officials to press for an urgent end to the fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah took to the airwaves to once again threaten to expand the conflict against Israel to new geographies. So here he said, quote, "The enemy knows what awaits in the Mediterranean Sea is also very significant. The Cypriot government should be warned that opening its airports and bases to the enemy to target Lebanon means it has become part of the war." Rather than dismiss these statements as mere bluster, European Union and Israeli officials should know that Hezbollah has the capability to act on these threats. This is largely due to the material support of its patron in Tehran and its terrorist network. Okay, so let me kind of break this down for you. When you're sitting in a situation where you're basically surrounded by enemies, the least likely enemy to have any kind of support in this particular case was Hamas. Hamas is sort of like that irritating kid that would steal your lunch money when he could, but wasn't really all that big. He just sort of used trickery and, maybe his speed or something like that in order to gain your lunch money at lunch. Like he would wait until you let your guard down and then attack. Hezbollah is different. Hezbollah is very well funded by Tehran, meaning Iran. And so stuff like this, they have a much more sophisticated arsenal to be able to bring force into Israel. And so this is one of the things that Israel issued concern and the U.S. issued concern about with regards to going after Hamas, was whether or not Hezbollah was going to get involved. Well, they're now starting to kind of beat their drum. And believe me, I know that the Western world does not, and Israel, in fact, doesn't want any of this to be coming out. And they have a report that came out in the Telegraph newspaper, I think, and reportedly claimed that a significant amount of the weaponry that they show in that graphic has been arriving at the Beirut airport courtesy of Tehran. So we're starting to see an increase in the temperature, a slow boil that's turning into more of a rapid boil over in the Middle East. And this is becoming a bit of a problem. So that same report alleged that Iranian Fatah 110 short-range ballistic missiles, SRBMs, and their Syrian copy, which is the M600, were being sent to Hezbollah along with Falak rockets, Russian Kornet anti-tank missiles, and the newly developed Birkin improvised rocket-assisted munition. Since at least 2014, Iranian outlets have bragged that Dimona, home to Israel's nuclear reactor, was within range of the Fatah 110 short-range ballistic missiles, a statement designed to imply that this capability was already forward deployed out in the area. So, yeah. This is concerning, folks. This is concerning. And, you know, the sad part about all of this, to be honest with you, is the fact that Iran was on the ropes. They were cornered. They were contained under the Trump administration. And what happened? Joe Biden got into play and gave them $6 billion and didn't bother to enforce any of the sanctions or any of these other things. And so I'm telling you right now, the temperature is rising across the world because of Joe Biden and because of what Joe Biden represents to the world, which is a weak American government and military. That's why you see Kim Jong-un and Xi and Hezbollah and Hamas and even, ISIS has come back now. All of this due to the fact that Joe Biden has no clue as to what he was doing in the world and presents himself as a very big, weak leader. We've got all kinds of problems here in the U.S. We've got the border is wide open. We've got potential terrorists who have come through. We have all kinds of things. And I'm telling you right now, my prediction is and always has been that something is going to happen between now and November, or actually even better, now and January, when President Trump, should he be victorious, gets sworn in. We are headed into a very dangerous time right now because Joe Biden and the Democrats have allowed this crap to happen. Prepare yourselves. Be prepared. Get yourself ready. It's not just for natural disasters. We need to be set up and ready to go in terms of protecting yourself and your families and your loved ones and friends. Got to have it done. I've been making plans of my own. I won't tell you what they are, but I've been making plans. I've been stocking up. I've been taking care of things, and I am hopefully going to be as prepared as I can be, even though I know that I may never be as prepared as I should be. Something is coming soon. Something is coming soon, and we need to be able to respond on our own local level. I highly encourage you to check into that and keep yourselves aware. Keep your head on a swivel. Be very, very vigilant and cognizant of what's happening between now and the end of this year and into January. All right, let's go ahead and finish off with this week's question of the week. All right, and tonight's question of the week comes in from the venerable, always prepared, always ready, and very wise, Buddy Wiser. He is a regular on this question of the week stuff, and I got to tell you, so here is his email that he sent to me at fans@americanperspective.online for tonight's question of the week. He says, "Hello, my fellow interweb user. I hope this message finds you well and with stout spirits. My brief but possibly involved inquiry is this. Please define and explain section, now he says 320 here, but I know he's referring to 230, of the recent SCOTUS ruling involving communication. Thank you. All right. So one of the things that got kicked back, okay, one of the SCOTUS rulings that came out just recently was in regards to the censorship piece, the government use of non-governmental organizations such as Twitter, Facebook, etc., to censor the American people. Now, here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand, okay? So Section 230 is actually under the U.S. law, it's actually listed as 47 U.S. Code Section 230, okay? You need to, if you want to look it up, I've got the link, I think, in the Cornell Law School is a great site to go and explain some of this stuff. But what Section 230 basically is it's an expansion of the Communications Decency Act, which essentially was designed in order to provide providers such as Facebook and X and other places the ability to essentially make things decent on the internet. It was really designed to do things like get rid of porn on those sites, to be able to give these sites the power to be able to self-content moderate and remove things that were potentially of an objectionable nature. The problem is that a lot of these tech companies are run by leftists, and they have decided to expand this and push this Section 230 and their ability to do this legally into things like when misinformation comes about. Okay? Now, as a part of Section 230, in order to differentiate these services like Facebook, YouTube, X, etc., from what would normally be considered the mainstream media, such as papers, television stations, radio stations, is the classifications of two particular groups. One being a publisher. And by definition, a publisher is someone who produces content but legally can be held liable for the content that they put out. This is part of the reason why newspapers, magazines, television stations, radio stations will censor out and get rid of things like bad language, or they may not publish somebody's ranting letter that got sent to the news outlet. And the reason being is because they, as a publisher, by legal definition, can be held liable for anything that they put out in their printed media. That is not the case necessarily for places like Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, places where people like me come and post content that is unbeknownst to the person or the website that is out there. And in this particular case, they are considered what is known as platforms. These platforms have a written legal exclusion to where they cannot be sued just because someone like me puts something out there that could be considered slander or libel or something along those lines. They have protections. Think of it sort of like the gun lobby. The gun lobby has protections of being sued should some moron go and grab a Remington rifle, for an example, and kill people with it. You can't necessarily go after the Remington Arms Company just because some mental moron went and did that to someone. And I understand the reasons for the legal definitions and the legal separation between these two. The problem is, though, is that when a platform starts to act like a publisher, that's when you're starting to get into a free speech violation, which is essentially where the Murphy versus Missouri case that went all the way, that is still actually being argued in the courts, and the injunction to block the government from talking to these platforms went all the way to the Supreme Court and was summarily said that, no, you don't have standing for this injunction. And that's essentially where we're at here, because the First Amendment protects the American people from government directly censoring your speech. But unfortunately, what it doesn't do, and this is where the Constitution and the constitutionality of this situation comes into play, is that it doesn't specifically state the government can't encourage someone else to do what they can't. Now, in spirit, that's exactly what should happen. And realistically, I hope that once the case is completely tried out in court and everything is taken care of, that the Supreme Court will get it again and will take Samuel Alito's path and say, yeah, we should have reconsidered this back, when we gave out that opinion. But the whole point of the matter here is the fact that there is a section, there is a law that allows Facebook, YouTube, X, so on and so forth. They can moderate in what's considered good conscience with regards to objectionable content. The idea, of course, again, was to do things like child porn and, drug usage on TV and all that other stuff. It wasn't necessarily to extend to political speech, but that's kind of where it's being utilized. And so this is where Section 230, again, 47 U.S. Code, Section 230, which is titled Protection for Private Blocking and Screening of Offensive Material, by the way, really, really comes into play here. Because you have to have, there's like no set standard as to what would be considered objectionable per se versus what is considered complete censorship. And so this is where the idea that a law is written, and this is part of the reason why the whole Chevron deference case comes into play. When you have laws that are written vague like this, or fairly vague like this, the court system needs to decide on all of this stuff, not necessarily a federal administrative agency. And so those two cases kind of apply to this particular situation. Hopefully that answered your question. If you would like to submit a question for whiskey, which is a Saturday night segment, or question of the week. It used to be question for whiskey, but question of the week. Do me a favor and send me a question to fans@AmericanPerspective.online, and I will do the research for you and try to explain and answer your question for all of this. And of course, Buddy is like one of my prolific question people out there, and so I appreciate him for that. All right. Looks like I've gone over my time, which is typical. But anyway, do me a favor. That's pretty much all I have for tonight. So do me a favor. If you would and haven't already, please head over to rumble.com, sign up for an account. It's free. And once there, make sure that you search out and find the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button. If you are already there on Rumble and signed in, please hit that thumbs up button. That is one of the particular ways that Rumble uses in order to elevate videos such as myself. I would love to see myself on the editor's picks page at some time in the future. I'm off tomorrow. Sunday is an off day, so I will be back Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you guys have a great rest of your evening tonight, and we will see you on Monday. Have a great night, and of course, good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.